The first verse that we're going to look at now is from Surah An-Nur, chapter number 24, verse number 33. I'm going to share my screen for those of you who want to read it. But, of course, I'm going to encourage you to be able to look at the Qur'an for yourself. Now, it's in the middle of the verse that we're going to need. So if you read the Arabic, it starts, وَلَا تُكْرِهُ فَتَيَاتِكُمْ عَلَى الْبِغَاءِ إِنْ أَرَدْنَا تَحَسُّنًا لِتَبْتَغُوا عَرَضَ الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا. Can you see that, everyone, inshallah? Just in case, I'll highlight it here on my screen. So you can see here that it's actually at the middle of the verse. Let's have a look at how some of the translators translate it. I will maybe translate it slightly differently because it needs to be understood correctly. But have a look at what the verse is saying. And although Allah is telling you a do or a don't, I want you to think deeply about the dalala. What's being indicated to? Yeah? What is Allah trying to capture in this verse of Revelation? Have a look at the verse. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. وَلَا تُكْرِهُ فَتَيَاتِكُمْ عَلَى الْبِغَاءِ إِنْ أَرَدْنَا تَحَسُّنًا. Now, it's a sensitive verse, and I know some of the language can be quite sensitive. And so, we encourage you to, if you need to be able to talk to your children, in a sensitive way, or for them to kind of step out from the next 5 minutes and bring them back in, feel free to do so. You as parents will know how you feel about this particular subject and what age you want to be able to introduce these sensitive topics to your children. The verse says as follows, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Do not compel your girls against their will into the practice of prostitution out of your desire for short-term gains of this world. Now, what was occurring at that time, sadly, was that men would systematically force women to be selling themselves. This happened to slaves, and it happened to female family members as well. There's another ayah of the Qur'an. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a verse. He says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. لا تأكلوا أموالكم بينكم بالباطل. Do not eat up wealth amongst yourselves in falsities. One hadith of our sixth Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq salawatullah wa salamuhu alayhi about this ayah, he says that men in Arabia at that time used to gamble. And when they went into debt, they would not sell their properties. They would not sell their businesses to be able to get out of their gambling debts. They used to force their own female family members, na'udhu billah, to selling themselves to pay off their gambling debts. I can't think of too many things more horrid than this. To force your own family members to pay off your gambling debts in such an exploitative manner, there is no level of shame that these men had at that time. And this is how the Qur'an and the Hadith talk about these things, because it has to be telling you about tragedies that occur in this world and the ways in which certain people exploit others. In this particular ayah in Surah An-Nur, verse 33, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, do not compel your girls. Now, normally, fatayatikum is referring to slave girls, but it could be any girls from the family. Do not compel your girls against their will into this practice. And then Allah qualifies it and says, do you know why they used to do this? Out of desire for financial gains from this world. It wasn't sufficient that these men used to have slave girls. They used to force them into this behavior for them to make money, for the men, for the owners, for the masters to make money. Now you realize there's an indication of dalala, because we've learned this now, right? That the Quran is not simply telling you do's and don'ts. It is capturing for you behaviors that were occurring at that time in order for people to realize how women were treated, how women were being exploited at that time. So I'm going to ask the question. When you see a verse like this now, and you begin to realize that there's a deeper indication, Allah isn't just playing games here. He's captured a verse to tell you what was occurring. What do we realize is occurring at that time as a systematic practice? Sadly, the systematic practice of forcing women into prostitution, na'udhu billah, for the financial gains of men. The fact that Allah Jalla Jalaluhu had to tell them not to do this in not one, but at least 2 places in the Qur'an should be sufficient for us to get at least one image of what was occurring at that time. 1 or 2 pieces of the jigsaw puzzle are now in front of us. We can begin to put them into the right place, start to build the picture of the practices of misogyny that were occurring at that time, na'udhu billah.